everybody, I hope you're all well. So if any of you guys have a TikTok account, you've probably seen these three girls before. This is a new pop punk group called Tramp, and recently they absolutely blew up on TikTok because a lot of people suspect that they are an industry plant. Tramp consists of three members: lead singer Marissa Mano, guitarist Caroline Baker, and drummer Paige Blue. I've been following the Tramp drama really since it started, and I found the whole thing, seeing it unfold, absolutely fascinating. So today I'm going to be talking about the controversy surrounding them, why people dislike industry plants, and why some artists will go as far as to fake authenticity so people like them more. Now, I'm not the first person to make a video about Tramp stamps. I have watched Anthony Fantano's videos and Grayson's Project's videos, so I'll link those down below if you guys want to know more. And I'll also link down below any TikTok usernames of people who have made TikToks about Tramp stamps because I found them very useful during my research. Also, I would just like to say before I start this video that this isn't really a drama video about Tramp stamps. This is more just an exploration of industry plants, why people dislike / turn against industry plants, why people fake authenticity, and I'm simply using Tramp stamps as a case study. Because everyone's been talking about them on TikTok, it really brought my attention to the whole topic of industry plants. As I explained earlier, Tramp stamps are a new pop punk band who have basically become infamous on TikTok and received a lot of criticism because a lot of people suspect that they are industry plants. And before I get into how all of this started, I firstly just want to define what an industry plant is for any of you guys that don't know. An industry plant can be defined as an artist who has a major / indie label backing their movement but presents themselves as a homegrown startup label to create a pseudo organic following. Some people do have different definitions of what an industry plant is. Some people believe that an industry plant is someone who is literally being funded by the industry and is being pushed by the industry, and a lot of their movements are planned out and controlled by their label. It's almost as if they are tailor-made by the label. Meanwhile, other people define industry plants as anybody who has used a connection to become successful in the music industry, whether they know that connection through family because they're rich, or whether they went to a very prestigious private school or a prestigious university and college and came across the connection there. And before I get into the nitty-gritty of the ethics of industry plants, a lot of people do not like industry plants, especially don't like industry plants who try to pass themselves off as homegrown, started from the bottom, or self-made. But again, I will elaborate on this later. Firstly, I want to elaborate on why Tramp stamps came to everyone's attention in the first place. Tramp stamps have been together since November 2020, I believe, or at least that was when one of their first TikToks was posted, but they have blown up recently because a few of their TikToks basically just hit a sweet spot in the TikTok algorithm, and as most of you guys know, it is extremely easy to go viral on TikTok. The first one was a put a finger down emo teen edition type TikTok, and despite them being a pop punk band, two of them didn't know one of My Chemical Romance's most popular songs, and that's why a lot of people started taking the piss. And another TikTok was a video of all of them lip syncing to one of their songs, which was called I'd Rather Die, and the reason why this went so viral was because the lyrics are I'd rather die than hook up with another straight white guy. Obviously, this got absolutely ripped to pieces, mostly because it's very cringy, it's very try too hard, but also a lot of people were calling out the racial fetishization of it all. A group of white girls screaming about how they do not want to sleep with white men, and also drummer Paige Blue is literally married to a straight white guy. So after these TikToks gained quite a bit of virality for the wrong reasons, for around a week people just thought of them as sort of a cringy pop punk band and nothing more. But after a while, people started doing some digging, because when you go on their Instagram, which is what a lot of people do when they find someone on TikTok, is they go on their Instagram, everything looks very professional but in a little bit of a weird way. In the punk music genre, there is a huge emphasis on authenticity. A big factor of punk music is the rejection of societal norms. I'm going to elaborate more on this later. And I think a reason why people clocked on so quickly that it looked weirdly professional was that it kind of looked like it was trying to look punk, if that makes sense. When punk is meant to be you not trying. Punk is meant to be effortless because it's part of you and your personal style. So already people think that the band's Instagram looks weirdly professional, and when you go on their website, again, it's a really nice looking professional website. And don't get me wrong, you can hire people to make websites for you, but when you scroll all the way down, you can actually see all of their socials, and they have so many. Let me just read them out. Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Tumblr, Facebook, Snapchat, YouTube, and Triller accounts. It's pretty difficult to manage 8 social media accounts as it is on its own. It's even harder to manage 8 social media accounts whilst producing, writing, and performing all of your own music. So they must have a marketing team to help them manage all of these social media accounts. And to be fair, they've never tried to hide this. I'm pretty sure in one of their YouTube Q&As, the drummer Paige said that they have a marketing manager to help them with all their social medias. But already this did annoy a lot of punk fans because punk does value authenticity so much. So after people discovered that clearly this band have a social media marketing team behind them, they decided to dig a little bit deeper into their personal Instagrams and discovered that firstly, all of them have connections to the music industry. Marissa Maino was a pop singer who sort of had that Lana Del Rey aesthetic going on. Caroline Baker sort of made pop slash acoustic slash rock music, more on the pop slash acoustic side in my opinion, but also I'm not a musician, so. And more interestingly, Paige Blue's Instagram, when you scroll down to the bottom, is all sort of screenshots of TV shows or movies or even adverts that she has wrote songs for. So it's very clear that she had a lot of connections to the music industry. So the obvious presence of a marketing team, plus if you dig into their Instagrams, you can see that they already have connections to the music industry. And I do think this got under a lot of people's skin because a lot of people saw it as inauthentic and slightly calculated. I think what mostly pissed off people was you can sort of see there's a very quick transition into pop punk music. It's almost like they sort of changed from a pop persona to a pop punk persona very quickly, especially because all of them were writing and producing pop music before they joined Tramp Stamps. But also this could just be them exploring different sides of music. They could have been making pop punk music before and not publishing it. You know, people can make more than 2 genres of music at once, but that's what a lot of people were criticizing. Allegedly, Caroline the guitarist and Marissa the lead singer were both signed to Prescription Songs, which is owned by Dr. Luke, who is an alleged abuser. So this already goes against their core beliefs of being in-your-face feminists, but I also do think we really need to bear in mind that they could have been trapped in a contract as well. So I'm not really gonna use them being signed to Prescription Songs as a criticism. But also, if you dig a little deeper, you can find old tweets of Marissa tweeting the N-word when she was 15. There's also a screenshot of this tweet which I'm not sure is real or not, and it's a tweet possibly implying that she's a Trump supporter. And another thing which really didn't help their cause was when you go on their website, there's a little about section, and it said this: all our songs start with us going on rants about stuff that pisses us off, shit we wish we were different, stories that have happened to us involving fucked up guys, says Maino. Adds Baker, it's the kind of stuff women talk about all the time with their friends, but no one's ever put it to this kind of music before. They haven't actually taken this down, which I am very surprised by. You know, there are so many pop punk bands that make great music now. There are so many pop punk bands before them who have paved the way, and also there are so many punk bands now who make punk music without the weird racial fetishization. I don't listen to punk music, but a few examples I found of online of popular POC punk bands and artists are Nova Twins, Whitelands, Big Joni, TCIYF, and Danny Denial. I'll also link down below a few articles for you guys about POC punk bands because punk is a very whitewashed music genre. To a lot of people, especially pop punk fans, the combination of a marketing team, pretty cringy music which is very clearly targeted at Gen Z, clear connections to the music industry, and the very quick transition from writing slash producing pop music to writing slash producing pop punk music, a lot of people came to the conclusion that tramp stamps must be an industry plant. And do I think they're an industry plant? I'm gonna be honest, I don't know. It's very clear that they probably have used their connections in the music industry to start this band and be successful, but whether you think that's an industry plant is obviously up to you. The only thing for me which could really point to them being an industry plant is just the cringy song lyrics, because it does just sound like BuzzFeed millennials sat in a meeting room and were like, what do Gen Z like? What do Gen Z hate? Talk about how much you don't want to sleep with straight white men. Yes, Paige, I know you're married to one, but let's just do it for this song, right? But also tramp stamps have never tried to hide their connections to the music industry. They still have all of their old Instagram posts up, so whether they've tried to come across as homegrown is up for debate. Now, tramp stamps did actually respond, and you guys can check out their Instagram if you want to see the full response. They clarified that none of them were currently signed to Dr. Luke, whether they were before we don't know, that their music is produced by their own label which was called Make Tampons Free, and that the songs were written all by themselves, and that when they sent them out to labels, labels wanted them on board straight away. Marissa apologised for her old tweets. They spoke about ageism, but mostly they focused on sexism. A part of the apology reading, "Fuck you if you are so sexist that you cannot believe this band was built from the ground up by 3 women. Industry plant, the irony is astounding." And I'm not gonna lie, I do think that there is some truth to their response. I do think that they probably have gotten a lot more criticism because they're women, because that's just a given. Women get a lot more criticism than men do if they do the same thing. It's very common that women are just held to a higher standard than men are, and it's not fair. But I don't think that people theorising that they're an industry plant is because they're women. The reason why people think that they're an industry plant is because their music is very cringy. Their music sounds like it was made by BuzzFeed millennials for Gen Z. They've all had a very quick transition into pop punk music, and all of them have very clear connections to the music industry. No one thought that the reason you're industry plants is because women can't be successful in the music industry. So tramp stamps cleared up in their response that they are not industry plants, and honestly, I'm gonna take their word for it. I think if they lied anymore, they would have really dug themselves a hole, and I don't think it's worth it. But just because they aren't industry plants doesn't mean that they haven't possibly started making pop punk music because they've seen the success of artists amongst Gen Z like Youngblood, or they've seen Gen Z reminiscing over old pop punk bands like My Chemical Romance and Panic at the Disco, and decided to possibly piggyback off of that success and try and give it a shot, even though they don't have that much passion for the genre. That is a possibility. I'm not saying that that's true, by the way, but that is a possibility. A majority of the criticism that tramp stamps received mostly revolved around them possibly being industry plants, and it basically got me thinking, why do people hate industry plants so much? Why is authenticity so important to so many people? And why is authenticity so important that some artists will go as far as to fake it? So as I said earlier, an industry plant is defined as an artist who has a major slash indie label backing their movement but presents themselves as a homegrown startup label to create a pseudo organic following. But other people define an industry plant as anybody who has used connections to become successful in any industry, whether it's music, acting, musical theatre, etc. Now personally, I define an industry plant as the first definition, someone who was basically tailor-made and invested a lot in by the industry. And then people who use their connections, I just see them as nepotism people. Now I'm not saying the sole reason that people are successful is because of nepotism. I understand that it still takes a lot of talent to succeed, but having connections and having famous family relatives, or your dad knows a famous producer, makes it a lot easier to succeed than having no connections at all. An example of an alleged industry plant could be someone like Justin Bieber. He was discovered online, producers saw him as possibly the next big heartthrob singer who teenage girls would love. Therefore, they marketed him that way. They put big artists on some of his first songs like Usher, Sean Kingston and Ludacris. And obviously people can be discovered online and picked up by the industry and not be an industry plant. What makes an industry plant different is the industry sort of shapes what type of artist they're going to be. Also, they push them like crazy. They will put huge artists on some of their first songs and they'll get really famous really quickly and it will seem like they've come out of nowhere. Another example of an alleged industry plant is Post Malone. Now, my boyfriend actually told me about this one and I find this really interesting because in my opinion, Post Malone is a fairly mediocre artist, but on his first album he had some really big features. People like Justin Bieber, Kalani, Quavo. He had 2 Chainz featuring on the deluxe version of his first album. And my boyfriend told me he was probably pushed to make hip-hop more white, which honestly doesn't surprise me. There are theories that Lil Nas X is an industry plant, which honestly I do not believe in at all, because the whole point of an industry plant is you kind of want to make them as marketable to as many people as possible. And Lil Nas X pole dancing down to hell and then giving a lap dance to the devil is making him extremely unappealing to thousands of Christians everywhere. There are plenty of successful and loved artists who are either alleged industry plants or have used connections to succeed in the music industry. A lot of the time when people discover that certain artists have connections, they either feel a bit disappointed, some people actually get genuinely very annoyed, and some people really don't care. And some of you guys may be thinking, why have tramp stamps received such a negative response for allegedly being industry plants? Because there are plenty of artists who are industry plants or have used connections who are very successful. And I do think that it does boil down to what genre you get yourself into and what the fans of that genre of music are like. And I think that there are 2 genres which are very unwelcoming to industry plants, and that is hip-hop and punk. Hip-hop music, there is a very big emphasis on the come up, having a hard/rough upbringing, living in poverty, started from the bottom, now we're here. So when someone succeeds in that genre through connections or through possibly being an industry plant, whilst loads of others have had to absolutely bust their ass just to get a little bit of success, then of course people are going to be very unwelcoming. Hip-hop really values authenticity and it really values rags to riches. The definition of punk is a music genre that emerged in the mid-1970s, rooted in 1960s garage rock. Punk bands rejected the perceived excesses of mainstream 1970s rock. They typically produced short, fast-paced songs with hard-edged melodies and singing styles, stripped-down instrumentation, and often shouted political anti-establishment lyrics. Punk embraced a DIY aesthetic. Many bands self-produce recordings and distribute them through independent record labels. As you guys can probably tell by this definition, punk really values authenticity. It's literally anti-establishment, it's political, but it's usually anti-government, and it's usually anti-monarchy as well. One of the most well-known punk songs is God Save the Queen, which is basically a Sex Pistols song that slags off the Queen. And it's a lot more favourable to distribute your music via independent labels rather than major labels, because you have way more control over your music, how you produce your music and what music you put out. You know, you don't have any sort of big execs controlling your decisions, which would make it less authentic. Of course, punk music has changed over the years. There are multiple subgenres, and a lot of the time you see with pop punk music that bands are signed to major labels. You know, there are a lot of fans that don't see that as taking away from the authenticity of the band, as long as they still have a passion for punk music, as long as they are humble, as long as they've come from humble beginnings. One artist which I've seen get a lot of criticism in the punk space is Youngblood. He makes alternative rock / pop punk music, and he has this very grungy look about him. A lot of people assume that he was working class before he became famous. Well, it turns out that allegedly he's upper middle class at least. Apparently his parents are very well off. Apparently his house which he grew up in has been put on the market for over £1 million. And because of this, a lot of people are accusing him of appropriating the working class aesthetic for monetary gain / fame. And if you guys want to know more about the phenomenon of middle class people adopting the working class aesthetic. I actually recommend my own video, the working class aesthetic and gentrification, if you guys want to know more. As you guys can see, perhaps the reason why tramp stamps received such a negative reaction was because their target audience was pop punk fans, and pop punk is derived from punk music, and a lot of punk music's roots are in authenticity and being anti-establishment. And also within the punk rock genre, I feel like there's this huge culture of pointing out fakes, whether it's fake fans, fake artists, fake bands, you know, people who only listen to these artists and bands now they're popular, or they only listen to them for clout. And also they targeted their music towards Gen Z, which is a generation which loves to dig and dig through people's social medias. They want to know anything and everything about an artist they like, and they especially want to know anything and everything about an artist they don't like. Before I talk about the ethics of industry plants, I firstly want to talk about why do people value authenticity so much? Why are people put off artists, bands, actors, even YouTubers if they feel like they aren't authentic? Personally, I think the reason why people value authenticity so much is because of relatability. People naturally root for people like themselves. People root for people that they see themselves in. People like people they can see themselves being friends with. Parasocial relationships, guys. People like seeing stories of normal people who had a big break. People even like seeing stories of people who have slowly but organically built their following or fan base. For some people it's something to aspire to. It's very validating for people who want a career in the creative or arts industry. It sort of feels like, oh well, if they can do it then maybe I can do it too. I mean, if we think about it, a lot of people much prefer YouTubers over mainstream celebrities. A majority of YouTubers film from their bedrooms, like myself. Oh my gosh, imagine if it was revealed that this is actually just a whole studio. And also a lot of YouTubers have fairly small audiences, so it feels like you're almost in an in crowd, and it feels very intimate to watch a YouTuber and to get to know a YouTuber. And I do feel like it's kind of common knowledge amongst the YouTuber community that a lot of people's ideal subscriber number is between 100k and 1 million, because when you surpass 1 million subscribers you become a little bit more distant, a little bit too famous, and people start seeing you as a celebrity, not really a human, and start being a lot more hypercritical of you. One example on YouTube which I think illustrates why authenticity is so important to people is the drama channel Spill, which makes videos mostly about drama within the YouTube beauty community. They gained popularity really quickly because they put out well animated, well produced, very well researched videos multiple times a week. But then a few months later, people started to clock, wait a minute, these videos are a little bit too good. And it turns out Spill channel was created by a corporation. If you guys want to know more about this, I recommend checking out the Right Opinions video about it. So now we've discussed a little bit about why people value authenticity so much, I do want to quickly talk about the ethics of industry plants, whether it's fair for there to even be industry plants, whether it's fair for people to use their connections to get into the creative or arts industries. Firstly, I want to say I don't think that people who use connections to be successful in the industry are bad people, because I think if any of us wanted to get successful in any of those types of industries and we had a connection, we would use it. But also I think that the arts industry is so dominated by people who have entered via nepotism that it's just wildly unfair. It's very elitist, it's very classist, because if you know a producer or a director or a casting agent, chances are you are upper middle class at least. But there are thousands of people who are so talented and don't stand a chance because they don't have connections. The only way to really succeed nowadays without connections is social media, and it's so frustrating because I feel like at a first glance you would think that, let's say, the music and the acting industry is maybe 50% nepotism and then 50% people with no connections. Lies. Personally, in my opinion, I think it looks more like, sorry, my hands are so orange by the way, sorry. Personally, in my opinion, it looks way more like 90%. The phrase is not about what you know, it's about who you know has rung true for years for a reason. The TV show Skins, which is super popular still, and it got first made like over 10 years ago, they have extremely successful alumni from their show. Dev Patel, Daniel Kaluuya, who just won an Oscar, Kaya Scodelario, Nicholas Hoult, just to name a few, and they did all of their auditioning through open auditions at drama clubs and schools. Those actors or actresses may have never gotten their big break if they didn't go to that open audition. It just isn't fair, because a majority of these connections boil down to how much money your parents make. And the reason why I get so heated about this is because when I was like from the ages of 17 to 18, I wanted to be an actress, I wanted to act, I was so passionate about it, and then when I realised, I don't really have a chance because I don't have any connections, I gave up. And I'm still like disappointed that I did that, and it just frustrates me because I know there's so many people like me who were way more talented than me, by the way, who have done the same thing because they feel like they don't stand a chance because the industry is just so unfair. But yeah, no, that's this video done. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. I know it was a little bit all over the place, but I really enjoyed it. I'm possibly making a part 2, and the part 2 is going to be about riot girl feminism. If you guys want to see that, please let me know because I don't know whether to make it yet. But yes, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you soon for another one. Bye.